Welcome patrons, it's been a little while, so let's get back on schedule with the Elven Pantheon, and most importantly, the God of Secrets, Dirthamen. The myth. Unlike Janae and Celise, Dirthamen actually has stuff to talk about, so we can at least get something kind of interesting out of this video. He is known as the Elven God of Secrets and Knowledge. His symbols are 2 ravens, bears, and the Varteral, all of which I'll go into more in a bit. Now, the Dalish legends say that Dirthamen and falon'din, another god we'll get into a couple weeks from now, were twins and the eldest children of Elgar'nan and Mythal. We actually get a small look at their youth, with the story saying that they delighted in the wonders of the earth, they played with animals, whispered to trees for some reason, and bathed in lakes and streams. The two were said to be very close, even inseparable, to the point that the first time they were separated is actually a very major story for the two of them. As the story goes, when the two were children, they find a sickly deer. They ask to play with the old animal, but it cannot, so falon'din takes her to rest beyond the veil. Falon'din wandered so far beyond the veil that Dirthamen could not follow. Trying to find his brother, he would wander the fade and eventually find 2 ravens named Fear and Deceit. They tried to convince him that his brother abandoned him and does not love him, but Dirthamen doesn't believe it. The story is vague on how he actually does it, but he then defeats the ravens and gets them to take him to his brother. Now, this same story is also how falon'din came to be known as the one to take the souls across the veil, as he vows to stay in the beyond. And in that same story, Dirthamen vows to stay with him because they could not stand to be apart. Dirthamen is also said to have created the Varteral. As the story goes, before Arlathan, there was a city in the mountains. It was absolutely loved by Dirthamen, who shared his wisdom with the people. Then one day, a high dragon attacks the city. To protect it, the elven god created the Varteral from fallen trees and earth to serve as an eternal guardian. In the Exalted Plains, there is also a statue of Dirthamen, which depicts him as a kneeling hooded man. Weirdly enough, human forces who were unfamiliar with the statue's relation to Dirthamen would nickname it the Raven, as they felt the shadow the figure cast looked like dark wings over the castle it loomed over. There are also just a handful of miscellaneous stories that the Dalish tell of Dirthamen, so in no particular order. Both falon'din and Dirthamen were said to help the elders in the elven community enter Euthanera and would walk past in the fade looking for secrets of dreams. It is said that he gave the elves the gift of knowledge and taught them loyalty and faith in family. Dirthamen held a sort of contest and gave each creature a secret, but as only the bears, who went into hibernation, kept it, they were the only ones to be honored by him. To honor Dirthamen, when the Dalish bury their dead, they place a cedar branch in the grave so that the deceased may scatter his ravens, who are now lost without their master. The reality. So we have little hard truth to go on, but there are a few things we can guess. In a Codex from the Temple of Mythal, which is only translated if you drink from the Well of Sorrows, it says this. His crime is high treason. He took on a form reserved for the gods and their chosen, and dared to fly in the shape of the divine. The sinner belongs to Dirthamen. He claims he took wings at the urging of Gillinan, and begs protection from Mythal. She does not show him favor, and will let Elgar'nan judge him. For one moment there is an image of a shifting, shadowy mass with blazing eyes, whose form may be one or many. Then it fades. So it seems that an assumed slave of Dirthamen was urged by Gillinan, another elven god, to take on a divine form and fly. And what does this have to do with the shifting mass that may be one or maybe many? Either way, we can guess very little about Dirthamen from this codex, other than the obvious that he had people that he owned. The only other codex entry that we can guess at the reality of the situation of Dirthamen is technically from an in-world study from the University of Orlais. In the entry, which is found in the Temple of Mythal, it talks about the relationship between Dirthamen and falon'din. Old tales of the two of them talk of them as twin souls, something that is not romantic nor familial, but something that is beyond friendship. The oldest stories still don't even talk of them directly, naming Dirthamen as falon'din's reflectant and falon'din as Dirthamen's shadow. The same codex suggests that the relationship is an allegory for a complex elven relationship that modern Thedas lacks context to understand. In-game, you can also find the Lost Temple of Dirthamen, which is located in Orlais off the coast of the Waking Sea. While exploring there, you end up finding a little bit about the high priests that lived and worked there and their lives after Dirthamen went silent, presumably after being locked away by Fen'Harel. The story roughly goes is that after their keeper, Dirthamen, vanished, the priests of Dirthamen rightly freaked out. The highest one, or the high priest, wanted to use the secrets that they kept and do some sort of evil ritual that would keep them safe, but the other priests weren't having it, so they dismembered him and locked him and their secrets away forever. There's also a shield found in the temple that is rumored to have been the way that the priests communicated with Dirthamen, but it's not certain if that is true or not. The theory. So first, one of the main fan theories is that Dirthamen and falon'din were lovers. Honestly, I just always took this to be some little line somewhere in the game that I just always missed, but now that I'm looking more into it, I can't find a single reference in the whole series that lists the two of them as lovers, and I think it's just one of those widely believed fan theories that just sort of became canon to a lot of people, but not actually in the games or related media. But as there is a Codex entry that directly goes against that, I'm willing to believe that this is not actually the case. So, after all that, the main theory that we should all be focusing on is what twin souls means. My mind first goes to possession, that either falon'din or Dirthamen was a spirit that took on the other, similar to Anders and Justice, which in this case, who was who. Now when we get to falon'din later on, Solos actually has a bit to say on him, which to sum up is that he was a prideful ass. But in the small tale that Solos talks about with falon'din, Dirthamen is never mentioned. Was this a time before Dirthamen? Or did he not play a meaningful part in the story? Why? Because every other story of them has the two of them together. Now, Solos does mention falon'din was bloodied by his own brethren in his temple. So, was that Dirthamen, even though the term brethren was plural? Was there more than one twin souls? I'm not quite sure. Another theory is that perhaps twin souls might refer to the type of spirit they were. So what I mean by this is, what if they both started life as spirits of wisdom, with falon'din becoming corrupted and turning into a pride demon? That would certainly fit the reflection and shadow names mentioned earlier. And another theory I've seen floating around is that you have a split personality thing going on. The two are actually the same person, but have different names for the different personalities, which I think that's kind of the lamest of the theories, so I would hope that's not true, but that's what some people think. But at this point, there is an endless way to read what twin souls is, and I'm almost inclined to say that all of these theories, in some way or another, are wrong. As the University of Orlais put it, I think there is information that we just don't have, and we just can't comprehend the relationship at this point in time. And that, dear patrons, is all that I have on Dirthamen. Do you still have lingering questions, proof that I'm wrong, comments about your own fan theory? Feel free to tweet me at @Elderthon on Twitter or send a PM to user Galenon on Reddit. The rest are all.